Now let's examine control. Many theorists have proposed that automatic stereotypic reactions can be controlled and overridden. Much research has gone into identifying the ways to achieve this. Process models have generally found that awareness, motivation, and ability are necessary for controlled regulation. We're now going to look at the major control strategies. First is individuation. When people are processing information about a person, they start with category-based impressions. They only move to forming individuated impressions of others when they are motivated to. If there's no motivation, biases and stereotypes take over. Stereotyping is the default, and it can only be corrected or canceled through additional, more elaborate processing. Now let's look at correction. Correction is a control process which seeks to regulate the impact of automatically activated biases in order to correct for their potential influence on judgment or behavior. Next is suppression. People may attempt to suppress prejudiced thoughts and replace them with more desirable thoughts as a distraction in an attempt to avoid unwanted bias. This may seem reasonable, but evidence shows that it often leads to a rebound effect in which the suppressed thought becomes hyper-accessible and may influence future acts or thoughts. Control is only achieved as long as the person continues to search for distracting thoughts. However, while they do this, they tend to simultaneously look for information that will support the stereotypic thought they have. So the more they try to suppress it, the more they fail to do so. Now let's look at indirect and unintentional control strategies. In the perspective-taking condition, participants were asked to place themselves in the shoes of the stimulus person. Researchers found that participants showed no evidence of rebound. Furthermore, they also found that perspective-taking decreased stereotyping and in-group favoritism, and these effects were moderated by self-esteem. People have a natural urge to think well of themselves, so here that urge was positioned to how they think of others. Now let's look at lateral inhibition, which is another strategy, and it has shown to be successful in reducing stereotype activation. Researchers found that a slight change in context could affect which stereotypes get affected and which get canceled. Those were indirect and unintentional control strategies. Now let's look at self-regulation. Self-regulation focuses on the inhibition of unacceptable responses and replacement with acceptable responses. In this method, an individual's own internalized values determine what they deem as acceptable behavior, and anything that conflicts with that is deemed unacceptable and should be eliminated. It takes a lot of time and effort, but eventually self-regulation can lead to internalized and automatic activation of low prejudice standards. It's important to note that there are limitations to deliberate control strategies like self-regulation. They are only available when people are aware of biases or potential biases. It's only then that they can make the effort to combat it. So if someone's not actively aware of it, then the bias will still present because they cannot actively work to suppress it and change it and regulate it. Now let's look at how automatic and control processes interact. Recently, there has been a growing recognition among researchers that automatic and control processes work together. Both are involved in the generation of any given behavior. Now let's look at computational modeling. Payne was the first to take a computational modeling approach to estimate the extent to which race biases involves automatic and control processes. He built off of Jacobi's process association procedure, which stated that behavioral responses reflect a combination of automatic and control processes. Using the weapons identification task he developed, Payne was able to document the existence of racial bias related to weapons. In the task, people were quickly shown black or white faces, and then a picture of a gun or tool. They were then told to ignore the face and to categorize whether the subsequent object was a gun or tool. This put automatic and control processes at odds, effectively dissociating them, thus allowing each to be independently observed. The quick nature of the task also prevented people from controlling their responses. Further research into racial bias when it comes to weapons has shown that blacks are more negatively associated with weapons and are more likely to be mistakenly shot because people mistook them for having a weapon. However, with adequate training, these biases can be combated.